everybody, welcome back to Expansion Network and Extraordinary Experiences.
Yeah.
And this lovely lady, this lovely guest that we have.
Yeah. The energy that comes off of her is already saturating us. I'm feeling so lovely just being in her presence. We have a very special guest for you today. Before we get started in the interview, I do want to encourage all of you. Reverend Angelia LaRue of Crystal Arrays is who we're going to be having our conversation with, and to encourage you to ricochet over to further programming on Expansion Network, because she has programming on the network now, and we want to direct you right out of the gate over there so you can truly engage and experience some of what she does. But in today's conversation, we're going to give you some of the backstory, always interesting backstory, of how all of these things, these crazy things that we do, unravel themselves in our lives, and the inspiration from where that comes from, and the bravery that it takes to put it out for all of you to be inspired and to change your life. We love these conversations, and so we invite you to sit back, relax as always, and get ready to be transformed through a simple conversation and engagement, right?
Yeah.
Angelia, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It is a delight to be with you guys. And to everybody watching, hello, bless you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. I want to get right into the story, because I know that when I have a conversation with you, we always have so much fun. We get to have this in-depth interaction. First thing, let's just step right into the introduction of, to the best of your ability, what do you do? What do you do? I know you do a variation and a vast variety of what you do, but for the person who isn't familiar with you yet, let's talk about your gifts, and let's talk about what you bring to the table for everybody and how that got started for you.
All right. I had a spontaneous awakening of consciousness. I kind of got the 2x4 Godsmack. Apparently, I was a very slow and dense student, and so I didn't get to have the gentle awakening. I had to get really... and so what happened was a huge amount of abilities came in at once. So I'm a healer. I'm a medical intuit. That means I can look into the body like an MRI or an X-ray and see things. And a lot of times where pain manifests is not the origin. And so I get to trace down the origin. I'm a psychic. Well, obviously you need to be to do those things. I'm also the founder of the Inner Passage Mystery School, which is the timeless esoterical traditions and, a gentle walk into some very powerful abilities, constructs, understandings, and ways of living.
Right.
And I manufacture orgone generators and solfeggio frequencies. These set the energy in the room around us. So if you are energy sensitive and you're watching, go ahead and feel into the space behind me. Yeah, it's very high frequency. And it's a very light, floaty energy, but very powerful, very potent. And one of the things that Spirit led me to early was how to energetically control the environment that I live in and that I work in, so that it's the highest frequencies and it's a bridge state to fifth dimensional consciousness, basically. So I live in that. I basically live in temple air all the time. I also have been contacted by a number of our star brothers and sisters and given some upgrades and enhancements to assist other people. No, it's really for others, although I guess I do benefit, but it's primarily for other people. And let's see. That's probably, and I'm an ordained reverend, and I'm a master crystallogist. So crystals are one of the prime languages I speak in and understand, so to speak, and have telepathy with them, and am able to access information from the Lemurian and the Atlantean eras. And that's how I was able to build things like the orgone generator crystal biobed.
Right, right. Well, and there's so much to what you assist people to do. And we know that sometimes these conversations, people are listening, they want, just a real pinpoint PowerPoint presentation. This is what I do in steps 1, 2, 3, and these are the end results you're gonna achieve or acquire. And we know that that's not the case in true, authentic nature of gifting energy and transformation and transcending for people and with people, that it's always truly more of what I want to call a quantum organic experience, where it's extremely personalized and individualized, because we have our own state of being, and we have our own things that we are trying to unravel for ourselves in our own life, or just waiting, what I call kind of in the hidden corridors, to have the doors open so that they can really present themselves, and that what you do is very much in alignment with that type of service for people. So this is where, number one, somebody could have an experience with you where, they're just barely starting to wake up. I'm starting to have funny dreams. I'm starting to have funny coincidences come into my life. I'm having thoughts, or I'm feeling energy and I don't know what to do with it, to somebody who's very seasoned in a lot of what they do, but are also very aware that the next transformational step for them is just right around the corner. And with their interaction with you, you may be able to really assist further aspects of themselves and everything in between. So how do you approach that with somebody? Somebody reaches out to you and says, I'm reaching out to you, not quite sure why. Where do we begin? What's the process that you like to go through in even just evaluation and conversation with someone for the first time?
So, kind of Reverend Angie talks with, the human personality in front of me. And we feel if we're comfortable with each other. And one thing that happens with that is kind of this Vesica Pisces principle, where we have them and their energy field and me and my energy field, and it kind of overlays. And that's going to increase their vibration, for one thing, and give them a lot more clarity on what sense I need something, this person can help me, but we don't understand what it is. And that often helps a person understand why they're there with their higher self. I'm not plan is and what we're doing and the best pathway through it. And we're all so unique. Genetic lineages, and then so many reincarnation lineages with all this information that we carry in our field around us, things we've learned in other lives. And our human usually doesn't know most of that. Right. And so connecting with the higher self, who knows what the plan is very important for me to do. Yeah. And it's very important for me to stay in contact with my higher self as well. Like that's how we get things done. Right. My human is mostly programmed. It's not going to be able to find the best solutions that can take in quantum realities outside of the matrix to solve them. So, and then I guess that you could say I have a lot of tools in my toolbox, and that person's higher self is going to lead me to know which tool sets are going to work best for that person. Yeah. And so that's really where I'm heading. And it may be into the crystal kingdom that resonates with a huge amount of people. But we may go more into, some of the gifts that have been given to me by the Palladians and stuff, because that resonates in their energetic system much better. Yeah. But even just sitting in the same space with somebody, my frequency overlaying theirs, there's a lot of blueprints. And there's a number of people who have experienced a quickening or an awakening, or suddenly developed psychic gifts of their own just sharing space with me. And that's how it's supposed to work, actually.
Right.
It's supposed to be that way.
Right.
Right? We are all one. And when our little threads in the weave get next to each other, we start vibrating together. Right? Like if you put a whole bunch of little instruments that rock back and forth in a room together and you start them all at different places, within a few hours or a few days, they'll all start rocking the same motion.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what this universe wants to do. It wants to get in accord.
Yeah.
Right? It wants to get in step and sync and in flow.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's going to be a lot of what I do, is helping people to come back into their own flow with the universe and advance their own skill sets, evolve their own consciousness,
Yeah.
heal their body, their mind, their emotions, whatever's needed to get them back in flow with the universe.
I want to jump in here because I want to make a statement for the viewers. Right, it's so much in alignment with what you talk about. We talk about the tuning forks. You can do the same thing with the tuning forks. Hit them at different octaves, and then wave a massive tuning fork, and pretty soon everything, you know, is in attunement with each other. But this is so scientifically proven. You can have an office full of women. Let's just talk about a work environment, and you've got anything from 2 women to 20 women or more. And within 3 to 4 months, all of the women's bodily cycles will sync. And this is a proven fact. And, you know, science, you know, or people will laugh about, you know, you don't want to walk into an office full of women during that time of the month because everybody is in sync, you know, with each other. But this is just one very physical example of that truth that science can't really give an explanation for, other than, thankfully now, that, yes, energy gets in attunement, you know, with each other because it's ultimately designed that way. And we all are coming to know this truth. If we haven't known this truth for a long time, we're coming to know the truth. And unfortunately, anybody who wants to kind of control people have to do is keep them out of sync from each other, keep them separated, keep them thinking distractedly. It keeps them out of sync because together, collectively, we are so powerful, you know, with our thought intentions and what we can do. I want to go back, if I may, to, you said you got the Godsmack, you know, experience, the 2x4 in the forehead experience, which many, many people do get. But let's talk, if you don't mind, about your previous life a little bit and what it was like, because I know that when these massive shifts occur, quite a lot of times it causes a deconstruct of your life. You know, everything prior to that awakening crumbles and dissolves away. It's like the Crystallis system into the butterfly, which can be very painful for a lot of people. A lot of people can't understand it, versus those of us, I had a much more easy transition, which I'm thankful for in this life. So I was able to hold on to some of the particulars of my life that I really loved and transformed others. But let's talk about, if you don't mind sharing, that massive disruption, you know, in your life and when that took place for you.
So before it happened, I was working very hard on being normal. And I went to church every Sunday. I sang in the choir. I sat on a number of charity boards. I was heavily involved in the art community, not only as a supporter of the arts, but as a professional artist. You know, I was taking care of my husband. I was making sure, you know, the house was clean and, you know, it was like a show house. It was very, very beautiful. I was having a very ordinary life, really. I was trying very hard to be normal and excel, you know, be the best that I could be. I just didn't know I was operating under an erroneous rule set. And so when the awakening came, it was December 9th, 2011 at 2:00 in the afternoon. And I was actually on a business call when it happened. And I had walked in the kitchen to get a drink of water. And I noticed I could like see through the atoms of the cupboards and the walls and see out into the Hawaiian landscape. And that seemed very extraordinary. And I thought something, I don't know, I guess I thought a drink of water would somehow cure it. And when I turned around from the sink with my glass of water, this silvery gray mist had formed in my kitchen. And I fell into it. And I'm still on the phone and I'm yelling, help, I'm falling. And there was no sides, there was no bottom, no top. And the only light seemed to be emitting from me. And somehow it stopped and I was back in my body, which I then realized I had left my body. And my body was sliding down the kitchen cabinets on crash course with the floor, and water was slashing everywhere. And I got back up again and I was like, I have to go now. And I got off the phone and I made it into the living room. And the next 3 or 4 weeks, I was reeling in energy. I could suddenly feel all the energy that exists all around us. I was also able to remote view, which I didn't know at the time that's what it was. I was also seeing multidimensionally. And so I was seeing other realities and other timelines. And I used to, our bedroom was upstairs, and I used to have to count every step, because if I didn't count the steps and stay extremely focused, I would fall up the stairs or I would fall down the stairs. And my body got covered with bruises because I would see the table in one reality as I went to walk around it, and I would clip it with my hip. Or I would see a doorway in one place and I'd go to walk through the doorway and I'd slam into the wall. It was chaos. And my husband had a very high clearance, and he worked in a building with very thick walls and no windows. And I could draw you a floor plan of the building. There was no place that my attention went that I couldn't see it. And it created complete chaos in our lives. It just deconstructed it. And within 3 months, he took his wedding ring off, he laid it on the kitchen table, and he was Googling constantly, trying to find out what had happened to me. And I took psych evals and intelligence test and, IQ test and all manner of things. And as far as we could tell, I was completely sane, which was really disturbing because I was experiencing persistently a very different reality. And I kept trying to sleep it off. I kept thinking, okay, tonight when I go to sleep, when I wake up tomorrow, everything will be normal again. And normal never, ever returned again. And Spirit started training me. And so my husband, he takes his ring off and he sets it on the dining room table. And he says, the best I can figure out what happened to you is what the saints and the sages and the mystics talk about. You're on the path now. You need to go and find out what that's about for the rest of us 9 to 5 months. And that was the end of my marriage. And I packed 2 suitcases and I left the islands. And I never really ever got to return again. And I spent the rest of the time training with Spirit, practically 24 hours a day. All the waking hours were filled with training, and oftentimes at night too. So it was very intense.
Wow. And so was that very emotionally painful for you when he made that statement to you? Or were you thinking already in a space of knowing that was a truth as well? That this just needed to close itself down peacefully and lovingly. And I'm very joyous and very excited about what is to come. Emotionally, the dichotomy of the emotions of the third dimensional realm reality that you're letting go of, simultaneously with the potential of what you are now stepping into. Totally, again, these are different realities, okay? You process emotions differently, you process thoughts differently. and even to be able to express exactly what's going on. But this is just another level of diversity that you're dealing with. How did you deal with that on top of your trainings and your transformation that was taking place for you?
Honestly, I was in deep shock. I had almost no reaction. It was just like, it took me about 6 hours to even process that. And all I could come up with was, oh, I guess that's right. You know? But I think there was a thought that I would get all sorted out and I could come back in to the marriage. We were just shy of our 20th anniversary. But what happened was I wouldn't feel the dissolution of that marriage for about 6 years, because the frequencies I was in during the awakening were so high. I was bilocating. I was almost teleporting. Just the most extraordinary stuff was happening all the time. And where the dissolution of the marriage and where the Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall and all the shattered pieces were at, that was so many frequencies away from where I was. I couldn't feel it. I also had no sense of time.
Right.
I remember realizing I needed gas in my vehicle, and I pulled up to a gas station, and I knew I was going to pull up to the pump. And when I got to the pump, I had no information in my head about how to get the fluid out of the pump into my vehicle. None. And I just stood there for the longest time. And eventually I remembered a little plastic card had something to do with it. And I pulled out the little plastic card, and I tried different things with the nozzle. I couldn't get the plastic card to make the nozzle make gas come out. And finally I got the information, watch someone else and see what they're doing. And so I did. I was like, I'm peeking around the gas pump, watching the person on the other side. And when I saw where they put the credit card into the machine, that information filled back in. But so much of the mundane world was gone. When I was driving, I was folding time regularly, all the time. I wasn't even operating by the rules of this world anymore. I was outside of physicality. And when I say bilocating, I could be in 3 and 4 different places at one time. And those people, would call me or text me and tell me, you were just with me, and I'm not sure where you came from, and I'm not sure where you went to, but we talked for an hour about blah, 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 and there was multiple. So, it was years before I got to be a human again and actually process the ending of that marriage. And when it happened, it just destroyed me, right? It was so sad. It was so sad.
Yeah.
And, and I'm back in my human again, and I still feel that.
Yeah.
But I can be dimensionally appropriate. Before, when I first awakened, I was just completely blown out. I didn't know what a cell phone was. I just had this little black thing that kept making noise, and I would take it to people and go, this needs something. And they would go, it's a cell phone. And I would go, oh, a cell phone. And then it would make more noise. I'm like, what is it? What does the cell phone do? And they're like, Angie, it's your cell phone. You're supposed to answer it. I don't know. How do you do that?
Wow.
I was not. So it's frequency domains, right? The higher frequency we're in, we can only relate and understand to things that have that same frequency.
Yeah.
And so for those years, the dissolution of a marriage couldn't reach me.
Yeah.
I couldn't feel it. It was an abstract concept. But now I have the potential to be dimensionally appropriate. I can span like a piano on all the different octaves. I can go to where I need to be and be in that frequency domain, and then come back to the human domain. And during those first 5 years, the complaints from people were, I want to know you're human. It's disconcerting being with you. It's like hanging out with angels, and I don't feel like I can just be my mortal self when I'm around you. And it was a very common complaint. People loved to meet me and be with me for about an hour, and then it was just too intense, you know? So I had to, well, a number of illnesses, and then having to do taxes, that lowered my frequency. You know, there was a number of different events that kind of decelerated me. And then I had to learn how to modulate back up again. All right. So there was a big process involved.
So I have to ask you this question.
I got to jump in here for just a second because usually I don't, there's very few times that I get involved in a conversation, especially when there's two women talking, but what you have experienced is so much like what I experienced from my near-death experience, because I had completely lost all of my understanding of who I was and what it took to be human again after, leaving this existence. The only difference is I had Julius's help from Casey. Otherwise, I don't know where I would have ended up being, but they were so close to committing me because I was so far out there that nobody really knew what to do with me. So I grasped what you were experiencing, especially the credit card going into the gas pump. That's a lot of what it's like when you're in a different plane of existence.
Yeah, which brings me actually to my point I was going to ask next, is did
Thank
you
you, Brad.
have anybody, Angie, that you could talk to during this time, that was there to support you in any way? Because like Brad said, our group, or primarily his group of Julius, was there really to step in and guide him through very clear transmissions that I was able to provide as a trans channel, and make him at least not question his sanity with just these thoughts coming through his own brain, where you've got to navigate being your own communicative guide through this. You had to have, in a physical, mortal state of yourself, maybe question your sanity, maybe question, am I going to be able to navigate on this realm? Maybe you had thoughts of
I was
suicide.
actually really depressed.
Yeah.
When it turned out that I was sane, because that meant I couldn't use medications, right? They weren't justified.
Yeah.
I was sane.
Yeah.
And that, there was one person who did help me initially a little bit, and it was my pastor. Around week 3, after church, you shake the pastor's hand or hug him and thank him for the sermon. And I was in line, and when I came up to her, and I couldn't believe the first couple of weeks that she didn't see something had radically changed in me. But she saw it the 3rd week, and she looked at me, and then she looked all around. I didn't know what an auric field was at that time, but she looked all around my auric field, and she goes, "Oh my, there's a lot going on with you, isn't there?" And I was like, because I had just been seen. And she said, "I'd like to come to your house and talk with you. There's a few things you need to know."
Wow.
And so I invited her to my house. And she was actually a Reiki practitioner, which I thought was like some kind of Japanese massage. And she had asked me if she could do Reiki on me that would help me get sorted out. And, I was like, well, I don't know how a massage is going to help me, but anything at this point could help. And I remember she took her cross off, and she was holding it above my body, and it was doing different things. And then she put it away, and I had no idea. I'd never seen my pastor do anything like this. It looked very odd. And then she held her hands above me, and the second the energy started streaming out of her hands, I suddenly knew what it was, and I had full recall of how it was done. And not only that, but that I had been a healer in multiple lives. And until that second, I didn't believe in multiple lives and I didn't believe in healers. But it was just a full, complete download. And then she told me the most profound thing after all of that. She said, the church can't help you any further than this. It was never designed to do that. You walk with God now. God is the great teacher. And she said, and I hope you'll come back and visit us someday.
Wow. Wow.
I graduated church.
There you go. With the blessings of a pastor. I mean, so most people do graduate church, but not generally with the blessings of a pastor. Usually, it's at the fight stronghold of whatever the leadership of a church organization is about.
Well, I asked her. I said, well, you know, because she told me I was experiencing the awakening, but at a very large scale. And I said, well, then this must have happened to you if you know about it. And she said that when I trained in Reiki, it began awakening me.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why did you stay in the church? And she said, I knew that was where I could help the most people.
Yeah.
And she said, and I know now you're one of the reasons.
Yeah.
You know, and what was that very just important little piece of information that I had kind of graduated and I was to walk with God. God was to be my teacher now.
Nice.
And, you know, which kind of, there were times I talked with God, certainly, but then there was this other being, which I call my higher self, that was even more intimate. God was quite magnanimous about everything. But this other being was quite more specific about how things should be done.
Yeah.
So that was very important to me. And then after some months, about 6 months, 7 months into the awakening, people just began to magically appear in my life and start telling me things, like strangers on the street, walking down the street, would stop in front of me and go, oh, honey, you got a throat chakra block. You need to work on that. You know, and various other things. And eventually I figured out which chakras were and how to work with that. And, you know, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Julius that I channel is always extremely fond of those of you like yourself and Brad that have created this extreme experience in this life for your awakening, that the bravery that it takes, because it's so disruptive to what you have created, you know, so far. They always have this great admiration because their energy is that way as well. And that's what happened to them in their last physical incarnation, which has led to where they are now. So they have this great affection for you big, huge, brave, warrior type souls that basically just jump off the cliff and hit every branch on the cliff on the way down and are still able to stand up once you land and repair yourselves and heal yourselves and say, let's go, I've got more to do. So thank you for being everything that you are in all of that.
I have to ask Brad. Brad, did you go through a spell where you were shaking your fist at God saying, we humans can't survive this?
I don't know if it was shaking the fist. I think it was more throwing things. And
yeah, he would get angry because, well, the first thing, and I don't want to make this interview about
I'm
us.
a pretty big guy.
He's a big guy.
He
can be extremely intimidating, and in most of his lives, he's been a warrior. He's been William Wallace, which is Braveheart. He's been huge warrior figures. So he has that energy. He still carries all that energy. But in our experience, Julius would confront him. You know, they would get in, I don't want to call arguments, but real.
Oh no, they were arguments.
In your confrontations.
They were because it would take days before he would talk to me again.
Yeah. He still had a misfire for a long time between me channeling Julius and me being me. There's that layover of that you're working on your acceptance and you're working through that experience. And I wouldn't understand what he was angry with me about. And finally, I would just tell him, I'm not doing this anymore. There's already too many complications in relationship to him having a brain injury from his near-death experience that I had to navigate my way through. And then this was compounding things. So that was, as people would say to me, they didn't understand how I could work my way through his outbursts and his irrational behavior. And I would always come back and say, because something inside of me helps me realize that as challenging as it is for me, it's 100 times for him what's going on in his head, in his reality, and trying to do his hardest to maintain an aspect of himself in the third dimension. Of course, most people didn't understand that. But I did. There was something inside of me that understood that. That's what made me stay as all of it finally started to level itself out.
But I also want to add that I also had all my family and all my so-called friends and people that knew me. They were all attacking me.
Yeah, I wanted to pull you back.
Telling me that I was an absolute lunatic and I was crazy and I
needed to do was go back to church.
Yeah, I just need to go back to
came out
church
of.
and everything will be fine and they can all help you and so that really was a problem. So I really understand inside. I can kind of comprehend what it is that you went through, and I am just amazed that you have gotten to this point. Well, I'm not amazed. I know the type of person that you are. So
Yeah,
I almost didn't, though. I almost didn't make it. I, meaning the body, vessel, ego, thinking mind.
Yeah. Same thing with Brad. Brad attempted suicide more than once.
Yeah, I did
And,
too. 1 foot on the gas, one on the foot pedal, and the north rim of the Grand Canyon 40 feet away.
Yeah.
That was my dark side of the soul, or, dark night of the soul. And that was when the ego finally surrendered, when it realized, when it saw what it was doing and that it would kill the vessel, it would kill the body before it would share it with a higher self. That was when it convinced it. That's when it knew it was insane, that it wasn't an effective operating system for operating in the expanded reality. It only had mastered the 3D, and it couldn't even, everything else beyond the 3D was very threatening to it. And it was willing to kill itself because of that. It was just too threatening and too terrifying.
Yeah.
But that was when the negotiation began between the higher self and the ego, and when the ego became one member at the boardroom table instead of the boss of everything.
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate. I get to tell the story of it, but I was very fortunate because I was able to manifest a vehicle, and I built it into a little camper van. And the worst of that for me, Brad, I went out into the desert. Believe it or not, it was biblical. 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. And when I came out of the desert, it was a humble, surrendered person who was ready to do the path and do the work. So, and I'm so grateful nobody saw those 40 days and 40 nights.
We all saw you.
We
all saw you. We saw you.
Yeah, you can look in the Akashic and see what that was all about. But Brad, I can't believe you did it in front of all your family and your friends and stuff. I can't imagine how hard. I had turned into like a Martian in front of them. They couldn't even relate to me or understand me. I had to get out of Dodge.
That's exactly what happened with Brad. Brad had actually gotten out of Dodge to a certain degree prior to this. So it's interesting, we can look back at some of the unconscious preparatory work that Julius was doing with Brad in some of the segments of his life. But needless to say, all of that is severed. His whole family is severed from him because the religion that they belong to is very much a cult.
You know what?
So,
My mother, this is the most amazing thing. This has just started happening. Now, she is a lay pastor in Methodism, and she's like very Old Testament based, right? So you can imagine the strictures and the structures that are around that. The last 6 months since the whole COVID thing really locked in, my mother is starting to ask me the most unusual questions.
wow,
Like parts of her are starting to wake up.
Wow.
I never thought that would happen.
wow. Bless her
Yeah.
heart, right? And yours, right? For that
Yeah,
incredible
it's
experience.
remarkable. I mean, I don't know how far down the path she's going to go, but she's asking the pointed questions right now and saying things that are just shocking. She wrote me the other day and she goes, "Did you know there's extraterrestrials?" Yeah, there's
I
actually
did
a
know
lot
that.
of them, Mom.
Yeah, I did know that, but thank you for maybe we can have that conversation, right?
Yeah, I'm very curious why you're asking me that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious to know. Let's talk if we can. I want to switch gears, not to misdirect out of this incredible conversation, but let's get, if we can, a little tangible on your services. Okay, what do you offer people? How do people find those offerings? Because by now people are salivating at the mouth to get in touch with you. We hope and we know. And again, we want to direct everybody over to your programming on Expansion Network so they can get an even more savory experience than this conversation from you. But if you don't mind, Angie, let's talk about some of the things that you offer people.
All right. Psychic readings is something a number of people come to me, including other spiritual people will even come for that. Healings, and I have a number of different modalities that can be done. That can be, direct energy. That can be through the organ generator, crystal biobed, and crystal arrays, which is powerful, amazing work. That can also be used to evolve consciousness. And then our star brothers and sisters have given me a number of implants. I have one which is a holographic projection. This in the palm of my hand, which puts up a blueprint, a holographic blueprint, and I'm able to look at anywhere in the body, really down to the DNA level. It's kind of activating just talking about it. That's weird. And I have another one which removes blocks to healings. It's a scan, a beam that scans over people, and somehow it removes blocks to healing, and it works really well with this. This is called the Antonian stone. This was given to me by a group of 12th dimensional Palladians. So psychics can see it when I turn it on, but it's not visible in the 3D realms if you don't have, activated third eye and pineal gland. I also worked with, I went down to Abidjan, Brazil, and met John of God before he got in trouble. And those beings came back and have showed up at a number of the healings now and helped people. In even people who have bought organ generators off of my websites, occasionally the John of God beings will follow the organ generators and perform healings on them. I've had several testimonials of that. Of course, the organ generators and solfeggio frequencies. Solfeggio frequencies come to us really kind of from biblical times or before. And it's very specific frequencies that do things like kill pain, increase communication systems. So people talking with one another, could be organs and blood system, nerve systems. There's ones that open the third eye. There's 528 hertz is the frequency of love. That helps you be in that loving state and admit it more. There's ones that help you connect with your eternal aspects. Sorry, there's something happening around me. um, I'm not sure what's going on. On my website, can I mention my website?
Yes.
Okay. My website is www.crystalarrays. That's CRYSTALARRAYS.com. There's a whole list of services, and that includes the Inner Passage Mystery School as well. So I'm the founder of the Inner Passage Mystery School, which teaches the esoteric traditions, so, and all the abilities and gifts that come with that, that are appropriate for you to be opened in this life.
Yeah. So I think I may know what's happening because I've got it going on in my head to you at this point. So in the Joyous Collective, there are 7 beings they call themselves the Quaraxians. They are from the Quaraxian galaxy, or the galaxy of Quarax, and they punch light language through me to students and audiences, and so they were talking very quickly to you. You could feel their transmission exactly at the time that you just said there's something going on in the room. So that's really, really interesting. I'm going to try to switch gears because I still have more to talk to you about, so I need them to stand off just a moment and not try to take over this experience. Please.
I really feel them up my spine coming out the crown.
So I need to tell them, okay, we know that you want to play with Angie, but I need to have you step aside for just a moment so I can finish this conversation. A few years ago, I had a visitation in the middle of the night. It's from a being. His name is Sinwa. He's a extraterrestrial type of being, and he used to visit me fairly often at night in my what people would call dream state, but it's just my altered state of consciousness. And he would take me places and show me things. At that time, I was interpreting that they were just kind of scientifically advanced technological things. He would take me places and show me forms of the way that people were healed. But listening to you talk about that thing in the palm of your hand, I got that from him about 3 years ago. He had taken me to a place where actually it was a type of a disc device, kind of concave. I called it kind of like a little gardening hand shovel. And you could set photos of people on it, and it would project up a active third dimensional presence of them. So you could use a very old picture of maybe your great-grandmother that had passed a very long time ago, and just the energy of that photograph would, for lack of better explanation, bring her back to life, to present time, in like a third dimension or a holographic projection. And you could either have conversations with those beings, but also to use it for medical assistance. So like for infants who cannot outwardly express before language comes to them what's going on with them, you could actually set somebody on this device and it would do the same thing, be able to project up a holographic projection that could interact with physicians or healers on the child's behalf, like a translator, a transcommunicator. And so they were showing me this device at that time. And I would come back out of these experiences, and of course I'd tell him, Brad's looking at me going, what are we supposed to do with that? I'm like, I don't know. But I know it's going to come into play, at some point as to what that is. So thank you for sharing that, because just that, as you were doing that, I was like, oh man, and there it is. So that perhaps even further, that's an explanation of the giftings that we have, or that can be provided for us in everything, in everything that we do.
Okay,
See, I got to wrap it up, right? Brad's like, so we got to get into the conversation. So Angie, please tell everybody again your website, but before you do that, can you explain just a tiny bit further on the school that you have, that you take your students through? What is that school about?
So in the beginning year study is really just the basics, because we can't begin to do things with energy and sculpt energy until we understand the types of energy, where it comes, and get our vessel very clean and pure so that we become the sculptor. So that's a lot of the basics, and that's going to include, getting ready for telepathy and remote viewing, and by that point probably people will already be interacting with some of their team or know who some of their team is, but really getting all of this into shape so that you can tell what is happening in the many layers of reality. You turning this into an antenna. And that's the initiate program. And at the end of the initiate program, those who graduate, the Palladians gave me the ability to give an implant. It's a little tiny stone. It's a beaming device that allows people to beam codums. And you get codums all throughout the Inner Passage Mystery School, which are these mathematical numbers that organize energy to do certain things. And they're just amazing. They're just amazing.
Nice.
Not even believable until you experience them. And then it's just like, how did humanity make it this far without knowing about this? And why have we never developed anything like this? Why do we have to get this from off planet? But
Yeah.
so that's the first year. And the second year begins the priestess training. That goes far more in depth into everything, and that goes into, bilocation and traveling to other universes or, other planets, other universes. By now, the telepathy is, should be good to go so that you can actually interact with other beings. It's how to, you learn self-healing in the first year, and then the second year it goes into healing others. There's a lot on crystals, a tremendous amount about working with the crystal kingdom, and just getting neutral, right? To where you don't have emotional ups and downs. You understand that all energy is neutral, and it can be whatever you want it to be. And you can use that to, have a big scene, or you can use it to create peace or just be at peace. So really learning that neutrality, learning that no mind meditation, because from that the universe opens up. And then the third year is where, and a lot of us learning ceremony and this and that, and then the third year you become the priestess, and that's where you really go into service. And I'm just a touch point on the path at that point.
Nice. Thank you for that. And your website again, please.
www.crystallarrays.com, crystalarrays.com.
Lovely. Are you the same? We're not the same.
I've got ideas already shooting through me. So
we have a facility here.
Yeah,
Facility here.
yeah,
Hey, come here.
We'll talk after we get off camera here.
We want to thank all of our viewers. We want to invite all of you who've just watched this program to sit back and relax, have a drink of water, get yourself grounded. We know that we can feel your enthusiasm already, and we haven't even processed this program yet. By the time you're seeing this program, there's a stall between when we filmed it and put it up. But we already feel your energy reaching out to us for this program. So we are delivering your gift to you with this conversation with Angie. Angie, we cannot express our gratitude for today, as well as the programming that you've provided for our network. That's going in and by itself is going to help to assist to transform people. So we cannot extend enough gratitude for you and our love for you and our recognition of you. We see you. Thank you so much for being.
Thank you. thank both of you for having me on this beautiful program, this gift of light that you're putting out into the world across the airwaves. And to everybody who joined, you're on the path. If you're watching this, you're in an important place. Keep discovering more what you are. Know thyself. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks everybody for being with us. Till the next show.